Good morning and welcome. I'm Councillor Colin Davey and I'm in charge of economic development here at Lincolnshire County Council.
And I'm Councillor Nick Worth. I'm the Deputy Leader of South Holland District Council.
We're pleased to welcome you to today's event as we launch the marketing of the South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone.
We truly believe the fairs will help make Lincolnshire one of the best places in the world to be located as a food and agri-tech business, as well as major research and development opportunities. Having sector experts on hand and on site, South Lincolnshire already has the UK's largest concentration of food logistics and is the centre of the fresh produce industry.
We're very proud of what we offer here and have well-established regional and national connections to those organisations and funders who help us make projects like this a reality. Our key business and education partners support our ambitious plans for the future, so those who choose to locate here will be truly well connected.
And there's space for all kinds of businesses. You'll hear from Judith Batchelar today, Director of Sainsbury's brand. And while the Fez is the ideal place for these heavyweights of industry, their presence is one of the crucial elements to help new and innovative smaller companies thrive.
We want to see you succeed and grow. As councils, we are committed to offering as much practical support as we can give. We have officers dedicated to helping your move to the site as smooth and seamless as possible. And we have a great track record of working with our business community to get the very best outcomes for our county.
And so with that, it's time to pass over to our panel. Greater Lincolnshire is already the food capital of the UK. Now we're looking forward to seeing it build on its status as a major player on the world stage. Thanks again for joining today. We look forward to having you with us on this very exciting journey.
Thank you, Councillors Davey and Worth, for that warm welcome, and good afternoon, viewers, and welcome to Sitematch365 at the South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone. My name is Toby Fox. I'm the Managing Director at 3Fox, the marketing agency for councils. And since lockdown began, we've been providing 3 digital channels to help keep our network of councils and developers and investors and their advisors connected. One of those channels, The Voice of Authority, is back a week tomorrow when we'll be with Morgan Sindel asking how healthcare estate transformation is being funded 3 years on from the Naylor Review. And tomorrow, our 3Fox Presents platform features new perspectives on new challenges, discovering value behind the disruption. That's a panel discussion with Wilmot Dixon and guests on how some councils have achieved the security of knowing they've maximised affordable home ratios irrespective of market conditions, and others have seized the opportunity to develop at scale without costly staff expansion, while others have retained control over their town centre revival plans so that growth adapts to changing local needs. Registration links for those events are going into the chat now. But today we're streaming on Sitematch365. It's a channel designed to support councils who are open for business. And many of you will have attended Sitematch London, an event taking place annually since 2012 with 50 or so of the most progressive and business-like councils, each one spending the day hosting 15-minute meetings with developers and investors and influencers. And that event had some great outcomes in terms of relationships started and nurtured to the point of investment and delivery in dozens of boroughs. While lockdown has stymied that for the time being, we want to make sure that our network stays connected and help the development community to play its part in getting the UK economy back on the road to recovery. So this channel offers place-based webinars, unveiling development opportunities and the context in which they're set. Today, that context is South Lincolnshire, where we're launching the marketing for the first phase of the Food Enterprise Zone, the FEZ. That's 10 fully serviced development sites totaling 6 acres within a globally significant cluster of food supply chain and logistics operations, anchored by the University of Lincoln's new Food Science Centre of Excellence, construction of which is just completed, and a new hub building for startup and spin-off agri-tech businesses that opens in 2022. The UK food sector is at a tipping point as the climate crisis, social change and workforce pressures combine with dazzling advances in agri-tech and protein transition and low carbon shifts in the supply chain to stimulate rapid change in this most vital of industries. And the FES is setting the pace of that change as the UK's biggest food industry development for at least 5 years. The FES is located at the heart of the UK Food Valley, the country's greatest concentration of food industry muscle and talent, and home to a supply chain network that's driving opportunities for collaboration and cooperation. This is where tomorrow's food technology is being tested and developed and deployed today. Brands and businesses can benefit by associating with a unique and fast-growing pool of agri-tech talent. And at about 12:45 today, we're going to launch the call for development partners with Tim Downing of Pygott and Crone describing how you can help shape the FES. And before that, Harry Norman of the Agri-tech innovator OAL Group will describe the key elements of the ecosystem that entrepreneurs like him need and how clustering and collaboration are fueling growth and demand for more and better space. Before that, in about 10 minutes or so, we'll get a broader picture of that agri-tech sector when the Greater Lincolnshire LEPS sector specialist, Martin Collison, defines the UK Food Valley for us, the country's most significant agri-tech cluster. And throughout these discussions, we're going to welcome your questions. We'll respond to as many as we can today, and our panel will provide us with written responses to unanswered questions that we can circulate after the event. And we're also going to be running some audience polls during the hours, so you can contribute directly to our conversation by responding to those when they pop up on your screens. But before all of that, we are thrilled to be able to present Judith Batchelar OBE, Director of Brand at Sainsbury's, to give us some insight into the future of food. So, Judith, can you tell us a little about why we should be so excited about all this, why we should be excited about the future of food, and what are the forces that are driving the industry forward, and what role Sainsbury's is playing in all of that?
Yeah, well, first of all, say thank you for inviting me along today, because it's absolute thrill to be here at what is a very special moment for the FES, and everything that you've just said really illustrates to me really strongly why the FES is set up to succeed, and not just because of the geography and everything else, but also because timing is everything. So if I could describe it as the planets aligning for the FES, then why do I say that? And I say it because we have got to the point now where I think humanity, citizens and Sainsbury's customers are all realizing that the food that we eat is going to play a big part, not just in our own health, but in the health of the planet. And not just in basically halting and stopping the impact that we're having on the planet, but in healing the planet and restoring the planet. And whether that's climate change, whether that's biodiversity, or whether that's human health and restoring human health to previous levels. So why do I say that? We did some recent research with Deloitte, actually looking at customers' motivations to buy more sustainable and what I would describe as thoughtful products. And there is a massive demand out there. 67% of customers said that they would purchase those kind of products. But then you take a recent Kantar survey that said, can you name a manufacturer or a brand who is doing a good job in the sort of healthy, sustainable foods space? Only 22% of customers could name a brand, a manufacturer, a retailer that was doing a good job in that space. And that disconnect is clearly a big commercial opportunity. But that only comes about when you have all the actors within the food system working together to make a fundamental shift in the way that we think about our food and the way that we produce our food and the way that we present our food to customers. And it has to be all those things acting together, which is why the kind of epicenter of everything that you're creating here in South Lincolnshire is so positive, because you've got the best research and the best academic minds combined with, farmers and growers and food manufacturing that can work collaboratively. And I genuinely think it is going to be collaboration that is going to create the products and the markets of the future in this space, bringing together all sorts of technologies, but also all sorts of enterprising individuals, because let's face it, it's people with a vision and the great ideas, supported by the science, the technology, the data, and the access to markets that makes these things come alive. So I think you've got all of the ingredients here in South Lincolnshire. I think it is a very exciting time. You know, everything, whether it's the agriculture bill, the environment bill, the UN Food Systems Summit in the summer, and then COP26 in November, never before has this agenda been so packed and so full of opportunity. So I feel very optimistically about the future, and I think you're incredibly well placed to make the most of it. So thank you for inviting me along today.
Thanks, Judith. Thanks for being part of it, and thanks for setting the scene for us. I'm just going to launch the first of our polls while I carry on talking to you, if that's okay. What are the connections between Lincolnshire and Sainsbury's and the food industry?
We have a massive footprint in this country, and if I think about what we source, where we source it, how we source it, I think the biggest opportunity that we've got from a Sainsbury's point of view is to essentially create closer links with the people that produce the food. So I would call that the communities that we source from, with the communities that we serve. And I think for me, that is a really interesting opportunity, and that's about labeling, it's about storytelling, and it is about connecting people much more closely with where their food has come from. We have seen that play out massively in the coronavirus, where the number of people that are shopping more locally for their food has risen dramatically. I don't think people will necessarily continue to shop locally, but they will want that connection with where their food comes from going forward. So yeah, interesting times.
Great stuff, Judith. Thank you very much indeed. Martin, Judith mentioned that we're healing and restoring the planet here. I mean, is that too big a task, do you think, for the Fez alone?
Probably is, yes, to be frank. It is something that we all need to be involved in, and it will be a global movement that we really need to actually address that. But I think what we can do from the Fez is we can help to lead that change. I think the other thing that really strikes me is that we take a view that it is about really it is the whole of the supply chain, right the way from the things that we take onto farm, through farming, through processing, through transport, through logistics, and then through retail. We all have to work together to solve these problems. And I think it is that join up, and it's the collaboration that we need to drive that will allow us to achieve those really those types of aims. The other thing I just wanted to pick up on was the carbon story, because one of the things that we do, we have a food board, which is our largest food businesses. And if we'd asked them about 3 years ago, where was carbon on their list, it would be 8th or 9th. It's now number 1 or 2. Everybody knows that we have to do that. And again, we can't do it with just some of the businesses. We need a whole, really the whole supply chain to come together, to look at efficiencies, to look at the way that the whole supply chain functions, so that we can address those types of challenges.
Thanks, Martin. Harry, let's dig into this a little bit, if you don't mind. What are you doing to save the planet at OAL?
Yeah, what haven't we done? We because we're a small company, we're an OEM. 10 years ago, we were all driving around in Priuses. Those are now switched over to electric cars. So that's one of the big things, transport. And it's interesting, future of food. We've got this 2050 initiative coming through the government, which is zero carbon. It's a massive task. So all the software we now supply is actually looking at how do we measure in real time the carbon footprint of manufacturing to create what will be required moving forward. So this is all about measuring and how we manufacture food, and with carbon footprint at the back of our minds all the time, because it's a massive challenge. But the people we've got, what's interesting in the Fez, you've got the links into the university and a very progressive council that help you get over some of these barriers. And there's no reason why the Fez can't actually lead the world in creating low carbon food, moving to zero carbon as we move to 2050.
Do you want to just set the scene for viewers a bit, Harry, and explain to anyone who's unfortunate enough not to know what OAL is doing, what it is that you're up to?
Well, basically, we're an engineering company that helps the food companies manufacture the goods, but we've changed our emphasis to be much more tech. So we're looking at software systems that drive efficiency, and we've introduced more recently robotics into the marketplace. So we're actually using robots themselves to actually manufacture the food rather than just handle and package the food. So there's been some really brilliant work that's done with the university, and we've got systems throughout Europe now pushing that technology, which is really, really exciting.
I'm sure a lot of our viewers are really experts in this field, but to me, this is all brave new world stuff. It's really super exciting. Tim, is there anything in this low carbon agenda that you wanted to pick up on before we move on to the next part of the conversation?
Not necessarily the low carbon agenda, but and also good morning to everybody as well. And I think it's testament to Lincolnshire's offering that we have over 450 people on this morning's webinar, which is amazing. So thank you for all joining us. One thing I did pick up from what Judith mentioned, and Martin as well, is the key word, which is collaboration. I think collaboration is the number one opportunity that businesses have in Lincolnshire, to be able to join up with other businesses that are involved in the food sector. There is no better place than the Fez in the UK to be able to do that. So we're really excited to be marketing this at Pygott and Crone and going forward, but we'll explain what we can offer later on.
Yeah, we'll get to the details of that once we whet all the appetite sufficiently, Tim. Thank you. Okay, let's move the conversation on a little bit and explain a bit more about this agri-tech sector in South Lincolnshire, in the UK Food Valley. Martin, what makes this area so significant for the UK in terms of agri-tech, and is this an opportunity only for food businesses?
Well, I have a few slides. If we could just have those up, that tries to put some data on some of this. The scale of our sector is really very, very large indeed, and it's both depth, its breadth, and its scale. So we have about 75,000 jobs if you add up what we have on farms, through the food processing, and the logistics and the transport system. There is no other part of the country that really comes close to that in terms of the scale, and we have scale at every part of that chain. And what we also see on this slide is really the concentration. And so the scale of that concentration, and it is spread really right across the Lep, all the way from the Wash and right up to North Lincolnshire on the Humber. And we have different clusters really across the whole of the Lep area. So just to give a little bit more on that, the things that we are really strong in are things like seafood. Over half of the seafood that is processed within the UK is on the south bank of the Humber. We have this fresh produce cluster down within the south, around Boston, around Spalding, and indeed around Holbeach. Really very, very concentrated clusters indeed that lead the UK. We also do a lot around meat, and also then we've got this growing tech cluster and all the machinery and equipment and really everything that goes with that. Another way to see this is to look at the jobs that are involved within the food chain. And on a national basis, it is about 4%. If you come right in and you zoom in to where the Fez is based, it is 42%. There is nowhere else really again within the country that comes close to that in terms of that concentration. And that is a concentration that's about food processing, it's about farming, it's about logistics businesses, and it's about the technology businesses that really support that cluster. And the new building on the Fez that is open today is surrounded by some of the largest businesses within the UK food chain and some of the innovators as well. And so businesses like Plant and Bean, who are really leading this charge in terms of new types of food and the plant protein agenda. And we have Bakkava, one of the largest processed businesses within the country. And we can go on. There's a real concentration, and I could have put 50 or 60 logos up there, and they would all be really within this cluster and very, very close to that Fez site. One of the other things that we've been trying to do is with our food board, really to focus on a few things. because we know that we can't do everything. And with our food board, we've defined 3 things that we think that we really need to focus on. One we've already talked about, really the use of robotics and the digital agenda. We think that that is going to change the whole way that the supply chain functions and the way that we provide labour and the types of labour and skills that we require. And it is about the whole supply chain. It's about lean, it's about being productive, and it's about being able to compete. We're also very, very focused on the low carbon agenda, and we want to lead on some of that because we do believe that we need to do it, in fact, much faster than the national targets. We need to be doing this within the next 10 years. And we want to be part of really trying to lead that agenda. And we also want to pick up on this issue around health, because we do believe that we've got a really strong story to tell there with fish, with vegetables, with salads, with all of those types of products where we lead. Those are things that we don't need to change. We just need to market them and we need to get the consumption up. We don't need to really change them. We don't need to reduce the amount of sugar in them or the amount of salt in them. They're already very, very good for you. What we just need to do is we need to drive the growth of those markets. And we're also very, very keen to pick up on the plant protein and the fish protein market, both of which we think have got real growth potential and that we would like to lead.
Thanks, Martin. You talk about the bet made in 2016. Where should we be placing our bets now? What's the most exciting thing coming forward?
Well, we still think that the technology agenda, we've only just begun. So we made a big bet on the robotics side. We have grown that team very, very quickly, but the demand is growing even faster. We believe that there's still another 10 years to run on that as we transform the way that we employ staff and the types of equipment really that they use, and all the changes that we're seeing within the supply chain. What we think is that where we made that bet and it has worked out, we will see the same speed of growth that we've seen within that, with things like the low carbon agenda and within the new types of health food. And both of those will happen within the next 5 years. So we are going to continue to focus on what we've done and we've done well, but we're going to add those new things in as well. And we believe that there's real growth around all 3 of those, both for food businesses and for the businesses that supply them, with all the systems and all the changes and all the new types of processes that we need really to drive those agendas.
Thanks, Martin. Judith, it's really interesting as a consumer and not an expert in this field by any means. And this is all the sort of the back end where all of this is happening. And I'm used to seeing pictures of Amazon Fresh and checkout counters and no more staff in shops and so on. So this kind of the robotics and technology agenda is moving quickly at the consumer end. How involved is Sainsbury's in the kind of full supply chain and the changes that are taking place?
Massively, actually, and it goes back to my earlier point about connecting our customers with the people that produce their food for them, because it is all about connections and people, and that's really important. And that's why data and technology play a massive part. And the way that I describe it to my colleagues in Sainsbury's is that somewhere in the world, every minute of every day, of every week, of every year, there is someone acting on our behalf, producing food for Sainsbury's and our customers. And whether that is a tuna fisherman in the middle of the Indian Ocean, or whether it's a farmer in Lincolnshire, or whether it's a smallholder coffee grower in Colombia, so on and so forth. And our job is to make those connections more real. And that's where the data comes in. And that's also where the net zero agenda comes in, because increasingly, and there's lots of interesting, myths out there about how food is produced and where it comes from, and whether it's bad for the environment or whether it's good for the environment, or whether it contributes to climate change, or whether it's not such a big heavy carbon footprint. All that requires data, massive amounts of data, and it requires us to then take those massive amounts of data right upstream to almost the soil that the food is produced in, or the oceans that the fish grows in, all the way through to, and actually I'm picking this off a shelf in Sainsbury's. And that's where the technology comes in to be able to take all of those data points and turn them into something that will drive actions. And driving those actions in my world is about helping customers to make more informed choices about the sustainability or the ethical credentials of the products that they're buying. In someone else's world in the system, it might be, is the carbon that I'm sequestrating into my soil, can I measure that so that I can use that to offset my carbon footprint because I've got an ambition to be a net zero farmer by 2040. So creating those big data pools that give everyone in the system, including government and how they're going to pay people for the environmental land management scheme, so on and so forth, making sure that data can be purposed for all the stakeholders to work collaboratively together to create the vision that we want, and to be then able to tell customers about it in a way that is engaging and meaningful, but also that bears scrutiny. So I have a real worry that there are lots of these schemes cropping up all over the place for all the right reasons and all the right motivations. They're not quite as rigorous and robust as they should be, and that when potentially, you know, someone has presented something that isn't quite consistent, that it will undermine all the really, really, really good work that's going on. And there's masses of good work going on. So I think one of our challenges is how do we, again, collaborate on making that data accessible to all stakeholders in a way that is meaningful. That's where I'm going to be focusing my efforts right now.
That's a great point, Judith. Thank you. I'm going to come to you, Tim and Harry, in a second, just to come back on any of these points. But first, we've got a question from the audience, and I'd like to just take the opportunity to put that to Martin. We've got Rachel Appleton in the audience raising her hand. Audience members, I'm going to be really autocratic about this. I'm sorry, viewers. You're not going to take the stage. That's for the panel. We do welcome your questions through the Q&A. So if you'd like to feed them in through the Q&A, we'll deal with as many as we can. The first one is a layman's question, if I may, Eric Hilton, viewer, but it's a question that I asked myself, and I was lucky enough to get a bit of prior warning, so I actually Googled this. But Martin, could you explain for Eric and our viewers, what do you mean by plant proteins? Where does it come from? What is this? Okay,
so plant protein is actually a pretty broad term in my view. A lot of it, though, that we are really focused on, and I think where quite a lot of the agenda needs to move, it is things like beans, it is things like peas. At the moment, we use lots of soya, and I think one of the challenges that we all face is that lots of that soya is in fact coming from parts of the world where there are concerns about the sustainability of the way that it's been produced. So there is increased demand for people who want to eat less meat or no meat, who want new types of protein sources. There's a challenge here that is a UK challenge, and it's an EU challenge. We import about 4/5 of all the protein that we consume. What we need to do is we need to find ways to do that in a really healthy way. And plant protein, so types of things that can replace meat but come from plants, so the protein content of those plants, is one of the really big growth stories within the food sector at the moment. We believe that we want to lead that, and with firms like Plant and Bean, we have the largest plant now within the EU that is just, which is in Boston, and it has just begun to produce those crops this year.
Fantastic, Martin. Thanks very much indeed. It's exciting stuff. It really is. Harry, feel free to pick up on any of the points that have been raised so far, any of the threads that have come out of the conversation so far. But also, I'd like to just steer the conversation a little bit towards the business environment or ecosystem that's needed to enable your business to maximise its growth.
Yeah, it's, I mean, in terms of ecosystems and what we need as an OEM, it's really about people. It's always about people, businesses. And what's really, really interesting in this particular initiative in the fairs is that we've got a collaboration of a number of people from critical places. So we've got kind of government council support coming in. We've actually got the academic prowess of Lincoln University on the doorstep. And then we've also got other things that really help us along the way. So it's that combination of the food manufacturers, and the kind of infrastructure that makes the investment in this particular area very, very attractive.
How does the area rate as a location for Agri-tech? I mean, you're a business. Are there any other parts of the country that you'd be, or indeed the world that you'd be looking at to locate?
It's very interesting. One thing about Lincolnshire, it's flat as a pancake. There's very little hedges. There's nothing to get in your way. Now, if you're putting an automated robot in to do something, it's got very little things to hit. And now I know that might seem particularly banal, but if you try to put this sort of technology in the middle of Derbyshire, where you've got cliff faces and things to consider, it's a major hang-up. This area is ideally suited with the people producing and the actual, just the structure of the land. So it's a case of really going for the low-hanging fruit here. Don't try and fly before you can walk, and certainly this sort of the agri-tech robotic investment in this area is here because it's easy to do here.
Michael Haverty in the audience is asking about the scale of that automation. What's actually going to happen in the next 1 to 2 years, the next 5 years, in terms of replacing the workforce that the sector's losing and has lost?
I mean, in my view, whatever you think is going to happen in automation, it happens 10 years later. Now, I know that sounds harsh, but you only have to look at some of the actual things that have happened along the way. People are working day and night to crack this problem, and it's an iterative thing. Once it is cracked, you will start to see it, and it's not a million miles away now, but it's still probably 5 to 10 years before you're starting to see mass rollout of technology in the fields, certainly robotic technology.
Yeah, and I guess there's a skilled workforce that's involved in utilising that. And we've got Boston College, I think, advertising places in the chat at the moment. But that's a vital part, isn't it? Martin, is there anything you'd like to pick up on in terms of that kind of ecosystem?
Yes, all the things that have just been said, but I'd go just one stage further. This question about whether using new types of tech will lead to job losses. I don't believe it will. What I believe it will do is it will change the nature of jobs, and we will have higher skilled and better paid jobs. What I think it will allow us to do is it will allow us to compete. So if you can be a more productive worker, then you can justify a higher wage. And if we get that right, either as Lincolnshire, or indeed as the region, or indeed as the country, we can actually produce more food, because at the moment we import about 45% of our food. If we could compete even better than we do now, we could actually produce more. And so I think what we will see is that this transition will drive a competitiveness position that allows us to produce more, and therefore we won't lose jobs. We will have just as many jobs, but they'll be higher paid and we'll be better skilled. To me, that is the transition that we we want to try and drive within the next 5 to 10 years.
Thanks, Martin. Tim, I've been kind of saving you up a bit because we've got the big unveil to come with the development opportunities, but I know you're busting to get in on the conversation. And there's also the point that Harry was talking about around the location, the South Lincolnshire as a heartland of the food industry. Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, please, Toby. I've been itching to say my favourite line, and that's "Trust me, I'm an estate agent," but I'm going to use it. Trust me, I'm an estate agent. Toby, you mentioned at the beginning of this that where would your bet be? And where would your bet be? And I think your bet should be on Lincolnshire, and I think it should be on the Fez. I think the Fez offers an incredibly compelling investment story that we'll come on to later. But there's also a wider economic story here going on in Lincolnshire as a whole, and I must give Lincolnshire as a whole a plug here. So recently, Lincolnshire won 5 Towns Fund bids, which is over £150 million worth of investment into the county just for those towns, and also the Freeport status on the Humber Bank. So all of that coupled with what's going on in the Fez then I think there's no better place for an investor or a business to relocate than into Lincolnshire and to the fairs.
Judith, would you like to pick up on any of that, and also be interested in your view, because obviously you're international scale, looking at the food supply that's coming into your stores. Where does Lincolnshire sort of sit on a world scale for you?
Yeah, and I think a couple of things, and you've already mentioned the positioning of Lincolnshire and the fact that you're geographically well placed, but you're all well placed because of the other things that are happening within the global food system. So potentially one of the big opportunities for the food system in the UK is what we would talk about as import substitution. So our biggest trade gap is in horticulture. It's about 10 billion a year. And it's an area where we have offshored that over the years to other parts of Europe, but there is an opportunity to onshore it again, but to onshore it in a very high-tech way, because we don't necessarily have the land or the right land in the right place, but also we do have the technology. So going back to the earlier points, we don't have any historical legacy. Or recent historical legacy. Therefore, we've got pretty much a blank sheet of paper. And if you were to start from scratch, you would say there are all of those crops that are things that in the new world we should be eating more of. So all of those leafy veg, all of those softer fruits, they're short life, they don't really travel well. And actually, the nutrition content of a lot of those things is not what it used to be because of depleted soils. But if you were to grow those in a more high-tech environment, you could create fantastic nutrition. So I'll give you an example. We've got some mushrooms that we sell that are high in vitamin D and vitamin B12, because that's the way we've grown them, to be high in vitamin D and vitamin B12. That's really important if you're eating less meat. So I think some of those really clever technologies that require infrastructure investment, which there's money for, there is a huge amount of investment going into agri-tech. They are fit for the market and the market needs for today. And they require a level of upskilling, because this is closer to manufacturing than it is to agriculture in the way those crops are produced. But the opportunities are enormous, because we're not asking customers to eat something different. We're asking them to eat more of what they used to eat more of, because it will taste better, it's fresher and all of those things. But those markets already exist. All we're doing is bringing them back closer to home. And that is a massive opportunity. And you combine that with, you know, the free port status and all of those other factors. I mean, you couldn't be better placed.
Thanks, Judith. I'm itching to bring Harry back in, but Martin, you just wanted to make a point first?
Well, I was just going to make a very quick point around glasshouses. We will have seen the amount of glasshouses that we have go up by over 100% within 5 years. And most of that is very, very high tech, and it is doing really what has just been said around fruit, around vegetables, around salad leaves, around all of those types of crops. The things that we that we've used fields for in the past are now moving under glass, so we can do 12 months of the year with very, very high efficiency, and we can use robots and we can create really good jobs. We think that there is real potential to do a lot more of that and replace some of those imports that we have at the moment.
I love the way we're talking about these sort of science fiction-y sort of concepts from the comics I was reading when I was a kid, and we bring the conversation back to the mushrooms that are in the fridge. You know, it's very direct and immediate, this stuff, isn't it? It affects us all in our daily lives. Harry, feel free to pick up on any of the threads that we've got running so far, but also I'd like to know from you, if South Lincolnshire is so good, what else does it need? You know, what do you want developers and the private sector to bring to the fairs? What do you want built there?
Well, I think what's really good is because you've got all these people with huge expertise in food, then it's a great place to start a new technology. So And the Fez is perfectly placed for small startups to actually get going. And one of the exciting things that we did was with our product called Steam Infusion. It heats products very, very quickly. That started off here. It started off in Lincolnshire. We did a few, and this was using Innovate UK money. It was using Lincolnshire, but basically Lincoln University. And that's gone from being UK based to sales in India, Australia, Americas, China, even China was selling the technology, which is unbelievable in this day and age. And that's what it's about. So you've got this kind of hotbed of technology companies that can start up and then start to break off around the world and show our excellence as an innovating nation, which is what we are. We're always good at innovating, but that follow through sometimes doesn't happen. And I think the kind of what you've done here with the Fez creates that bed to get going.
And what kind of space do you need to create your steam infusion process?
Well, you basically just need really, really good people to work with. But it also helps that the retailers get involved, manufacturers back of all were very much part of that development. And they try it out on their processes. Oh, it's amazing here. We can actually basically reduce the fat content in products because it makes a smoother product. So you kind of, you need all the people from the various areas coming together. And if you're all spread all around the world, it's difficult, but we're not in this area. We're all very close together. And it's that experience that just fires and accelerates and catapults you forward to the next stage.
Great stuff. Thanks, Harry. Okay, Tim, I think our appetites have been whetted. We know about the industry that this is all sitting in. We know about the strength of the cluster. We know about the demand from business. So what's on offer here? What do you want from what do you want developers to get involved with?
Toby, thank you. How long have I got? I mean, I've been very well prepared, to be fair, with the fantastic speakers we've had earlier. So hard act to follow. So thanks, guys, for promoting the Fez as well as you have done. Look, it's a very easy sell for us. The Fez is a great opportunity in 3 phases. I'll start with phase 1. So initially, we have 6 acres of land, which has an LDO, and I'll come on to the LDO in a minute. Which offers developers or investors the opportunity to crack on and get an investment within the Fez. The accessibility to the Fez is very important to mention as well. We're only 20 odd miles away from Peterborough, which has regular train services to London with 46-minute train service, which is tremendous. Easy access to the A1, and then easy access to the other food sectors within the county of Lincolnshire as well. And I think one thing that hasn't been mentioned so far is we are literally at the heart of the UK food valley. Now, I can't emphasize that strongly enough. We are surrounded with, along the East Coast, with some of the best food opportunity in the world, let alone in the UK and Europe. And we are literally at the heart of that. We have one of the most proactive enterprise partnerships I've ever dealt with in the country. The Greater Lincolnshire Enterprise Partnership are incredibly proactive, and they're open for business. They want to do business. They will pick the phone up to anybody if anybody has an opportunity to or wants to discuss investment into the county. They will be able to pick that phone up and make things happen. And I think that's really important. So anybody that's out there tweeting today, hashtag Lincolnshire makes things happen. It does, and it's tremendous. The other important thing is we have an LDO, so we have a local development order for the site, which means that we can speed up the whole planning process.
But from what you've heard of what's on offer here, Harry, is this the sort of thing that businesses like yours are going to need?
I mean, it is a brilliant spot. If you're wanting to supply into the food industry, if you want to manufacture food, there's no better place to be located, because as we've talked about, it's about collaboration. So a lot of the raw materials and the ingredients that are being used, it's important they're accessible. They're accessible locally. Otherwise, then you're impacting on your carbon. So having these partners, having the university, having a proactive council that's driving things forward are enormously important. So, you know, if the people aren't right, you really are struggling, and you have got it right. And the examples that we've had that in development and working with the university specifically, it's just really great fun. They really, really, I've got some very, very academic people. They've also got very practical people. And you need those people sitting around a table to solve the very difficult problems we've got regarding carbon. You know, and that diversity is something that the local area really does offer.
Judith, what are you being told? What's industry telling you about the sorts of space it requires, the sorts of buildings, the sorts of infrastructure that needs to be put in place to help them grow and grow their businesses and supply you with what you require?
I think you've got some real extremes, actually, because if you think at what's at a sort of UK level, the capex investment into food manufacturing is one of the lowest in the developed nations and has been for a long time. So other countries have been investing serious money in their food manufacturing infrastructure for years. So we've got a massive catch up to do. And I suppose the key thing for me is that making sure that where those investments are taking place is that we're really confident about the markets that those investments are going to serve, so that we are not chasing things that it's very easy to be seduced by the technology and I'm the world's worst in that. So I'm probably not the best person to talk to, because I'm love innovation and I love people who've got great ideas. But genuinely, the way that other countries approach this, so for example, some of the tax breaks that you get for innovating and for research and development, and also the ways that I suppose those pre-competitive technologies are developed so that they're creating the enabling technologies for the sector to take place. They're structured in a very different way. So if you look at something like a Wageningen University, and I think, you know, it comes back, and that's why I'm so excited about the National Food Strategy coming along later this year, of the possibility of us being able to move quicker, because on the things where we need to move together, we are collaborating and moving together, that enables the competitive part of this to raise its game. Because too much is being invested in really basic things rather than exploiting the market opportunities. And if we can get that bit sorted, then we will have all of the fundamentals in place in this country and in Lincolnshire to be able to really launch some of these wonderful business ideas and give entrepreneurs the platform that they need. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting, really interesting.
Thanks, Judith. I'll come back to you in a second, Harry, to carry on that point, but it's only fair to give Tim the stage back to finish off. And actually, there's a segue there, isn't there, with what you were saying about the LDO and the fact that we need kind of legislative infrastructure around these things to help attract developers and businesses to the fairs.
So we're talking about the 40,000 square foot hub building, which is a great opportunity for small, medium-sized businesses up to larger businesses to collaborate in a building with like-minded other businesses. So we have the opportunity in there to have workshop, research and development, offices. There'll also be some creche facilities there as well as for employers as well, which is really important. And then you're adjacent to the National Centre for Food Excellence with the university. So it's a tremendous opportunity for an investor or business to relocate to the area. Then we have phase 3, which is another 55 acres of land that again will have infrastructure, etc., put into it. The other important factor as well, I think is important to mention, is the fact that the area is very affordable. So the land prices are much more affordable than other areas of the country. If you are relocating your business, we have a fantastic workforce who again are affordable, and an abundance of workforce who are skilled in this sector. But also if you are relocating staff to the area, then you also have affordable housing. Lincolnshire has some of the most affordable housing in the country. So an average house price in Lincolnshire is something like 165,000 versus a national average of 275,000. And you also have a wonderful lifestyle. There's no better place in the country to live than Lincolnshire. So it offers a compelling story, really, and I recommend anybody to consider this as an investment and a relocation opportunity.
Thanks, Tim. Okay, Harry, you wanted to pick up on something Judith was saying earlier, but also
Yeah.
I've got a direct question for you, and that direct question is: are you going to be locating in the Fairs? And if not, what would it take to get you there?
It was just really catching up on Judith's point about Europe being ahead sometimes in technology. Interestingly enough, our first robotic system, although we attempted to sell it into the UK, went to Holland. The second one's gone to France. The third one's going to go to Germany. It is sad. So what I would put out the challenge to people listening in is, why aren't you taking a place at the fairs and using the British technology to actually rip it up? Because your European competitors are actually engaging and are further ahead. And I think it is really, really important we grab the nettle here and actually start automating our processes rather than talking about it, because there hasn't been the investment, sadly, in some of these things, which is holding us back, because we'd much rather do it in the UK, especially in the pandemic, because it's been quite challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I put you on the spot, and I won't press you. But if you want to shout about how quickly you're going to be moving into the Fairs.
I'm not sure the Fairs is big enough for us.
Well said, Martin. Is this a kind of common problem across the industry? And what's the LEP doing, or what can the LEP do to help?
I think Judith is right. The UK hasn't been as fast on some of these things in the past. I think what we're seeing a real change. So the amount of investment that we're seeing is increasing at pace at the moment. We've had more inquiries in the last 6 weeks than we had in the previous 6 years for firms that want to expand within this sector. So there is something that is going on at the moment, which is around investment, it's around capacity, it's around addressing Brexit, it's around really trying to learn from all the things that we've been through within the last year. I think the other thing that I just come back to was the tax break question. There has just been a new tax break announced that is actually going to start within the next 2 weeks, and it will provide for the next 2 years a much larger tax break for people that want to invest within automation, within equipment, and with upgrades to their factory systems. So there is no better time really to do that. In terms of what the LEP's role is, the LEP's role is about trying to make this the best place to invest. And we do that by working at lots of different levels. So we're working with the councils to try and make the planning easy. We're working with the university to make sure that there's all the support around skills and around the innovation agenda. We're linking businesses together. We're also trying to attract as much grant aid as we can. We've been very, very successful in the past with some of the grant schemes that we've run, and we're now in the process of designing new ones. Many of those grant schemes in the past were things that came from the EU. We've now got the chance to design them ourselves. And so we're taking that opportunity to really put in place the types of grants that we need to drive these types of agendas forward. And we look forward to working with anybody who wants to work with us to really grow this fantastic sector.
Thanks, Martin. We've just run a poll on whether the audience agrees that South Lincolnshire is the place to locate an agri-tech business. There are 2 people out there who don't believe that this is the number one location for agri-tech businesses. So we're going to go around the panel now, and I'm going to ask each of you to come up with or to share with us one thing that you'd like the FES to deliver that will make your business better and that will help the agri-tech sector along, either very practically in terms of specific facilities that are really missing from the UK or from South Lincolnshire, or in a more general sense. So Martin, what can the FES do to turn those 2 people around and get them to think of South Lincolnshire as the number one location for agri-tech?
Well, the key thing to me that it can do, it is about the physical fairs, but it is about the virtual as well. It is about the network. We will drive this change if we all work together. So the ambition that I have is that it is about being a node, it is about being really a hub and a cluster, but it's about the virtual sense of that as well. And it's the reach out really to the rest of the community to get everybody together, to work together to drive this change process.
Fantastic. Judith, one thing that the Fez can deliver?
I think that connecting customers with where their food comes from and making that a lightning rod for all the good things that are going on.
Fantastic. Thank you. Tim, what's the Fez going to deliver apart from an avalanche of business into Pygott and Crone?
I think I'll reverse it. And what we can deliver for the two people, which surprises me that there's two people that say it's not the right place. We can deliver literally everything you need as a business to relocate or to open up in the food sector at the food enterprise zone. There is no reason why you should not relocate to this location.
Fantastic. And anyone who's interested, there's an email address just under Tim, tdowning@pygott-crone.com. Use that email address immediately to get in touch with him. Harry, over to you. What can the Fez deliver?
I'm just stumped to think there isn't. I mean, from my experience of dealing with the National Food Manufacturing Centre, it covered all the bases. I'm genuinely saying, and I've been a bit facetious before, a perfect place to locate, and we would consider it. Obviously, we've got commitments. We're just in Peterborough, which is not far away. It's a perfect location. There isn't anything wrong. So, you know, it's just doing more. And I think Lincoln University, people, you need to go there and experience it. It's a superb institution. It's got fantastic people. And people think, oh, Lincoln's a bit sort of, may have thought it's second rate. When you go there and you see the people and you talk and you look at the facilities, it's world class, and there's so many world class things, and sometimes it's perhaps people haven't been there that makes them say, oh, well, I wouldn't go there. But go there, experience it, have a really good look around before you actually write it off. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, 2 out of 400 odd isn't too bad, and it's nice to know that there are 2 people from Derbyshire that are watching. I think there's another point just to add in at the end, which is I was told off the record earlier this week that the Architects Corps, who are working on the hub building, which I think Wilmot Dixon are constructing at the moment, it's going to open next year. They achieved planning permission for that last week in what they described as the simplest planning process we've ever dealt with. Tim, presumably you'd echo that.
Very much so. Before I got cut off, I was actually mentioning that, and I wanted to mention Corps' conversation with South Holland District Council. They found the whole process so seamless and quick, and I think that's a really important factor here. I don't know an area in the country that can offer this make things happen attitude and a can-do attitude that Lincolnshire can provide. We as an agency, Pygott and Crone cover the UK, and I don't know anywhere else in the UK that can offer this. So you know, for Wilmot Dixon to be able to crack on with that quickly is really important, and likewise for other businesses, they can do the same.
Absolutely. Okay, developers, you've got your mission. We've got to finish the panel discussion there. We're out of time for that, but we've got a special treat for you in just a moment. We've got a short video with one of the UK Food Valley's most energetic and successful businesswomen in conversation with one of the stars of tomorrow. So stick around for just a couple of minutes for that. But in the meantime, no more discussion. We've got to let you get back to work. If you've got any more questions about the Fez, though, don't hesitate to email Tim. His email address is right in front of you now, and probably in the chat somewhere as well. In fact, if you don't have it already, you probably haven't been paying attention. Of course you're going to be emailing Tim. There can't be anyone out there in Zoomland who isn't convinced by now, even those 2 viewers, that it's not time to invest in the South Lincolnshire Fez, thanks to the fantastic job our panel has done in presenting this mouth-watering opportunity. So viewers, please join me in thanking them. Thank you to Judith Batchelar OBE from Sainsbury's, and thank you Martin Collison from Greater Lincolnshire LEP, and thank you Harry Norman from OAL Group, and thank you Tim Downing from Pygott and Crone. Thanks also to the great team at Lincolnshire County Council and to Team Lincolnshire who've made the event today possible, and most of all, viewers, thank you for taking the time to find out about development opportunities at the Fez. We hope we've whetted your appetite. We look forward to welcoming you, to helping you connect with the Fez, to getting conversation started, stimulating development, and helping get the economy back on its feet. The recording of this session is going to be available on Sitematch365.com shortly, and there's just time to remind you I'm going to be back tomorrow with a discussion about council strategies to find the value behind disruption, and next Thursday to look at healthcare estate development funding with Sir Robert Naylor. Register for both of those those using the links in the chat now. But now, as promised, here's a special treat, a chance to spend a couple of minutes with one of today's food industry driving forces and one of the sector's stars of tomorrow. From South Lincolnshire Food Enterprise Zone, from me and from everyone at 3 Fox, good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Sarah Louise Fairburn, founder of luxury food and drink company Maker, and I'm also chair of Greater Lincolnshire's Food Board and deputy chair for the Greater Lincolnshire LEP. I'm absolutely delighted today to be talking to Molly Johnson, who is currently a student in our National Centre for Food Manufacturing. Hi, Molly.
Hello.
Hello. Would you just like to say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Molly Johnson. I'm currently studying at the NCFM in Holbeach, working towards my degree for food science and technology. And I've been working at Bakkavor in Spalding for just over 3.5 years now, working on a range of chilled products, for example, soups, dips and dressings.
That's absolutely amazing, Molly. And do you know what? That's absolutely music to my ears, because I love to see people prospering in the food industry and within Greater Lincolnshire as well. That's absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
Molly, I'd just really love to know, because we often have these board meetings talking about what do we need to do to inspire our next generation to work and be around and in the food industry. So what's your views on that? What do you think we need to be doing within Greater Lincolnshire?
I think a lot of it stems from probably in schools and in education. So when I came out of A-levels, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And the apprenticeship side of things weren't really pushed that much. It was more to do with people going to university, which people obviously tend to go out to more cities and things like that. Whereas I decided not to follow the crowd and to do an apprenticeship and to stay in Lincolnshire. So I think if a lot more things can be said and educated in schools, that would be a good, really first start.
Do you know what, Molly? I totally agree with you. I actually think I've got 4 children myself, and obviously they have been in and around farming, because we have a big poultry farming business as well. So they're in and around the food industry. But if they weren't, and they have friends that aren't, what is going to excite them and attract them to the industry, to know actually what an incredible industry it is to be in. I think you're right. It's how can we get that education in schools, even from nursery level, showing, children how's food produced and where does it come from.
Definitely. So Sarah, I know you're a business owner. What's the best thing about owning a business in Lincolnshire?
I absolutely love owning a business in Greater Lincolnshire, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I'm originally from Yorkshire, actually, and I moved to Lincolnshire to work in my husband's farming business, and that's where I first got a taste of the food industry, and I absolutely loved it. I loved going to the big supermarkets, meeting all the other suppliers as well, understanding all the different logistics and how produce has grown and how the marketing side works. I think so often you think about the food industry, don't you? And you think it's picking potatoes in a field or whatever. Yeah. It really isn't. It's like the most incredible industry to be a part of. So whatever skill set, there'll be something for you. And that's what I love about it. The beauty of Greater Lincolnshire is there's so many diverse businesses that are in food within the same sector, if you like, within the same place, within the same space. So particularly at the moment for me with my luxury food hamper business, Maker, like everything is within like a 15-20 mile radius that I need. So all the fresh vegetables that I need to go into the boxes are here. Lots of the protein products that I put in my hamper boxes are around here. I have some great artisan, oil makers, drizzle makers, great cheese producers.
Yeah.
You can tell I just love it because, I can use that great supply chain to my business's advantage, and there's some really great people and up and coming people actually creating some great food products.
Thank you, viewers, for taking part today. That's the end of the event today. I'm sure you'll all be getting in touch with Pygott and Crone at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, thank you very much for attending, and we hope that you have used the opportunity to do business with the fairs.